you very much for having me here today. You'll be pleased to hear all evidence to the contrary when it comes to the title of my talk, that I'm not just going to talk about me this afternoon. There might be a little bit of me, but not too much about me, hopefully. So I was given the role of Editor-in-Chief at the Huffington Post UK nearly 3 years ago. And I think in my wildest career ambitions, if someone had said, what did I want to do, what job did I want to have, it probably would have been the one that I found myself in. And I'll tell you in a second how I found myself in that role. But about a year ago, I kind of looked around, and on the surface, appeared fairly successful. I'd won a number of awards, the site had won a number of awards, but I wasn't particularly happy. And there was an incident last Christmas, actually, when my mum got down on her knees in front of me and burst into tears and said, "You're not healthy, we're worried about your body, I'd lost quite a lot of weight, and you're not the Carla that we know and love." And I kind of realised I had to change something. I loved my job, I wanted to be amazing at my job, but I wasn't happy. So I gave myself 2 New Year's resolutions. One was to take all my holiday, which I have been very good at doing, and 2 was to do more of what made me happy. So be pleased to hear I didn't spend the entire year buying shoes and drinking champagne, although that probably would have helped with that. But I really started looking at the way that I worked, who I was surrounding myself with, and how I could kind of bring those 2 together so I could be successful externally and internally, but happy alongside that. And I hope some of the tips and tricks that I'm still learning might carry some resonance for you guys this afternoon. So to start with, and this goes back to how I found myself in the job at Huffington Post, I believe that you shouldn't just act, you ask for things, you have to seize them. So nearly 3 years ago, I was standing on the train platform at Barnesbridge Station when an email came through from the CEO of AOL, Tim Armstrong. I was working at AOL at the time. And it said, I wanted you all to know from me first, rumours are about to start coming out that we're buying the Huffington Post. And I read this email, it was a very cold, frosty morning, and I loved the Huffington Post. I'd been working at Marie Claire previously, and every time I got called into the editor's office with a brainstorm about what's going to be in the next issue of the magazine, I'd just log on to Huffington Post, see what was on their pages, and go in and look like I really knew what was going on in the world. So a big fan of the site and a big fan of the founder, Ariana Huffington. So I got on the train, just read this email, and I tracked down Ariana's email address, which actually isn't that hard to do before you think I'm a great detective sleuth. Tracked down her email address and sent her an email while on the train saying, "I'm the editor-in-chief of AOL, I understand you're about to become part of the family, we should talk." And she got straight back to me, and we had a call later that week when she said, "We're not really supposed to be talking yet, the deal hasn't gone through, but nice to meet you over the phone." And I was obviously going, "It'd be amazing, we can bring HuffPost to the UK, full of ideas. Yes, that sounds lovely, Carla, let's speak in a few months' time when the deal's done." And she came over to the UK that March, and I went for breakfast with her at the Charlotte Street Hotel. And I arrived clutching my trusty iPad, upon which my designer had mocked up what the front page of the site should look like. I have to say my designer, because when I tell this story, I normally say I've done it, and I haven't done it, I'm not that creative. So we mocked it up, and it was the front page of the US site, but with a little Union Jack and a picture of David Cameron on the cover, which actually is pretty much what it looked like when we launched the site. And we've got rid of the Union Jack since we realised that when you put United Kingdom, people kind of knew what we were talking about. Anyway, so I had breakfast with her, and she was on her way to The Guardian. Alan Rusbridger, the editor there, had invited her to be part of his news conference that morning. So I trotted along behind Ariana, and she was sitting there. And in the middle of Alan Rusbridger's news conference, she announced that we would be launching the Huffington Post UK and that I would be editor-in-chief. I was sitting cross-legged at the back of the room with lots of students who'd been invited. I'm pretty sure I thought I was one of those students. I went bright red in the face and then went out and called my mum. And I was speaking at an event a few weeks back and was introduced to a number of panellists, and they said, "Oh, I use you in all my lectures in women's studies about how people should ask for their job." Really? I think I asked for my job. And then I kind of realised, well, I sort of did. I just didn't realise I was doing it. And if someone had sat, or if I'd been sitting out there and someone had stood and said, you need to go out and ask for the job that you want, I wouldn't have known how to do it. But I wanted this thing so much I didn't think. And it's one of those things that I've learned, and I think as women, we expect a lot of the time that if we work hard, that people will notice it and they'll pass us the pay rise or they'll give us the promotion. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And in that first year of Huffington Post, which was pretty hard work, let me tell you, I was going through a bit of a crisis of confidence, and I was saying to one of my colleagues in America, I just don't understand why people don't think that I'm doing an awesome job. And he said, have you told anybody? No, I mean, I can't do that. I'm British, couldn't shout about the huge achievements we're having. And he said to me then, be more American. So I've learned to be more American, so now every time anything good happens, I tell the world, and they think I'm doing a really good job. So don't just ask, seize things and act more American. Has been one of the key learnings I've had over the last couple of years. The second key learning has been to learn to breathe, aka count to 10, aka sleep on it. I find this isn't, I've taken up yoga, that's also another tip, but it's not just my yoga breathing that's helping me, but taking a second to really think about what I'm going to say or how I'm going to respond to something. I am very easily riled. People know how to push my buttons, and I get upset very quickly. And I've learned that the only way that I'm going to deal with that is if I take a minute to actually stop and breathe and think about what I'm going to do. I was on a retreat last week. This is part of my taking on my holiday, and we weren't supposed to have our phones with us. It was really hard for me. I smuggled my phone with me on the Friday hike, and we finally got some Wi-Fi. We were in North Devon, so it was very, very hard. And this email came through. I'm not going to tell you what it said, but I saw this email. I was furious. Started typing back this email. Just before I pressed send, I read it through, and I thought, okay, I might have taken this in the wrong way. So I deleted the email, stopped, breathed a little bit, and panted actually, I think, so I was walking up a hill at the time, and retyped it and made a joke about what had happened. And lo and behold, the response that came back was also funny. And although I might not have misconstrued it because of the way that I dealt with it, everyone came out of that an awful lot happier. I have to tell myself to do this all the time, so I'm still learning that this is the best way to do it, but it's definitely better than those emails that I've normally fired off and then found myself in an argument with someone, and an argument on email is never as satisfying as when it's done in person. Quick worrying has been something. I worry about pretty much everything. My adorable mother, I can tell her that's probably one of the things that she worries about everything, and I have inherited that worry. I was trying to think of some examples I could give you, and I ended up thinking so much about all the things I've been worrying about this week. I realised I need to move on and work out actually what I was going to talk about this afternoon. But the problem with worrying is it's a total waste of time because it achieves absolutely nothing. I kind of call it the sort of invisibility cloak. If you spend all your time worrying, you're hiding yourself from what's going on because you start panicking about pushing yourself forwards, which means you don't do the being American and going out and grabbing things, and instead you're hiding behind this veil of worry. I take everything very, very personally, which feeds into this worry, and I've realised that I'm never going to get rid of that. I've tried to not take things personally, but it doesn't work. So if I'm going to take things personally, I need to use that as a positive, and that means that I care about things. It means that I put a lot of passion into what I do. But if I then turn that into a worry, no one achieves anything, certainly least of all me. And part of taking a step back and not obsessing about worrying is that you actually start doing things. And as we know, actions speak far louder than words, or in my case, thoughts. So I'm trying to get off that addictive crack of worrying because it's certainly not feeding anything positive in my life. The other thing that sort of related to that is this idea of not having to be perfect. I found an amazing quote recently. It's actually from John Steinbeck, but I read it from the OC actress Olivia Wilde. So I'm giving my philosophy to you this afternoon from the OC. It actually wasn't her first. And the quote is, now that I don't have to be perfect, I can be good. And that inner perfectionist in all of us, that idea that we have to be perfect, again, gets in the way of just doing a really good job. No one's perfect. Our parents think we're perfect, but quite frankly, that's their job. And I'm quite happy that my parents think I'm perfect, but I don't expect anybody else to. And yet I was trying to be perfect and realised that I wasn't entirely sure who I was trying to be perfect for. I thought that if I wasn't perfect, that I'd lose my job. Or if I wasn't perfect, my team wouldn't respond to me and think I was a great manager or a great editor. But actually, once I stopped trying to be perfect, I was actually a lot better at what I was doing. I was good. And I think we place far too much importance, and that's not just how we work, how we look, what kind of friend we are, what kind of girlfriend, wife, or mother we are. And actually, if we stop trying to be perfect, we give ourselves a huge, huge break, which would mean less worry, which would be really good for me. Have inner confidence. I don't get particularly nervous about public speaking. I think it's all those speech and drama classes my parents threw me out of when I was younger. But a few weeks back, I was doing my first Oxford Union debate. I found myself really obsessing about this, and I turned up. I was really nervous about what I was talking about. Turned up, and there are all these precocious students, and they're in they weren't wearing top hats, but quite frankly, they might have been. They were wearing tails and white carnations, and we had this fabulous dinner, and they were passing port to the left and right, and toasting the Queen, and I was thinking, I'm so out of my comfort zone. And then we went down to do the debate, and it's in this really grand hall, and I was really, really cold, so I was sitting there shivering in my coat. It was a great dress underneath, and I think, oh, I'm really worried. And I thought, I'll do that, I'll try and imagine them all naked. That's going to help. I've heard that. Well, I'm looking around, this isn't helping at all. And then I looked around again, and I was like, they're all 18. What am I worrying about? I'm a grown-up. And I suddenly realised why these Oxbridge students end up running the country. They're so confident. There was no room in their minds that what they were talking about might not be right. I was about to go and argue a proposition. I still wasn't sure I was on the right side. I mean, this is why I'm not going to convince anything. So in the last 3 weeks, I've decided that I need to be more Oxbridge. I need to suck some of that 18-year-old confidence from these super intelligent people and take it as some of my own. And it's kind of that, it's the be American again. I'm sure deep down they have huge worries. They're probably worried about passing their exams, or whether they're going to be standing for their MP-ship in Oxford or Cambridge or God knows where else, or which party they're going to be running the country for. But that inner confidence was quite awe-inspiring, and so I'm going to try and be more like that. I'm going to take that 18-year-old confidence and use it for myself. I think the most important thing that I've found, and this is very much in the last year, is that you need to have cheerleaders around you. You can't do it all yourself, despite the fact that I do think that hopefully within us all there is this power of me, or you, or I, but that you need to have the right people around you. And they need to be there to cheer you on and tell you that you're doing a fantastic job. It sounds kind of needy, maybe it is a little bit. My parents are certainly my biggest cheerleaders when things are going really, really badly. I phone them up and I get a bit of tough love from my dad, and then my mum says, just leave it all, leave London, come home, live with us again. You come up with stories and journal. And I go, oh, okay, no, I definitely don't want to stories and journal, I'm staying here. And that's been really important. And I found just a few people at work who I can go to, and I can moan, and I can burst into tears, which does happen. I'm trying to do it behind closed doors as much as possible. But I can do that, and they will tell me that I'm amazing, and they'll remind me to breathe, and they'll tell me that I've got that inner confidence. I was going through a really bad time at work a couple of years ago. Something was said about me in the press that I took really to heart. And one of my oldest best friends took me out for lunch and told me that she looked up to me, and that she was proud that I had got to where I had on my own terms. And I will always remember that, not only because she was no good, which is really lovely, but that she was there for me. And she's one of those people who you can talk at, and she never asks you to do that in return. And I hope I do that in return. When I'm on holiday with me, I had some flowers afterwards, though it is for a week I had to talk at this poor girl. But she's still my friend, so I'm presuming that there must be some tit-for-tat going on. But I think it's really important to have cheerleaders around you. I think that you can't do everything by yourself. And you need some people that you know, no matter how much you mess up or how wrong you get it, they're going to be by your side. I think that's crucially important. Get a life. I work in an industry where if you wanted, you could probably sit behind your computer and type stories out all day, every day. But I think that as a journalist, certainly, if you're not aware of what's going on in the real world, then you're not going to be the best journalist. I've worked with some brilliant female bosses and some brilliant male bosses. My boss, when I first started at Marie Claire, discovered that I was getting into the office at 7:30 every morning, and I was still one of the last to leave. And she told me that this doesn't mean that you're good at your job. You think that because you're the first in and that you're the last to leave, you think that means that I think you're doing a good job. I think that means that you don't have a life outside work, which means you're not very good at it, and you're not managing your time really well. And for a month afterwards, she would walk around at 4 o'clock, and if I was still at my desk, she would kick me out of the building. And then I remember working for a male boss, and this isn't a male-female split so much, but he sent me an email once at 10 o'clock and said, why none of your editorial team in the office? I was like, well, they finished for the day. Well, I'm still in the office. Yeah, I think you're in the office playing your guitar and calling on the phone to your girlfriend. You're not actually working, but you're there to prove a point. And I don't want anyone who works for me to ever do that. I want when they're there to work efficiently and hard and productively, but I want them to go home. I want them to have a family life. I want them to have friends. I want them to talk to people at the pub or find out what they're interested in and kind of write about it the next day for us, or ask them to blog about it, even better if I have a post. It's really important that we realise that work isn't everything. And I love my job and it's a huge part of my life. But if I didn't have a life around it, then I wouldn't be as good as I am at my job. There's a member of my team who's told me that his wife has said that he is never ever allowed to leave Huffington Post because for the first time he gets to take his kids to school. He managed to go to parents' evening the other week, and he'd never been able to do that at the newspaper he was working at previously because he was expected to be there first thing in the morning and work late at night just to prove a point. And I fundamentally disagree with that. And then my last point is ignore everything I've just said. Because everything I've just said has worked for me. And I think different things work for everybody. You have to find your own power of you. You have to work out what works for you. And not everything will work. One of my very first jobs was working in Vogue House as part of the Condé Nast digital team, and we worked across Vogue.com and Glamour.com, and it was very exciting. We were on the 7th floor of Vogue House, and I'm pretty sure everyone else in the building didn't realise there was a 7th floor. They were on their lovely glossy magazine titles. This is a good few years back when digital wasn't quite as sexy as it is these days. We tell ourselves that, those of us working digitally, it's sexy these days. And when you go in the lifts at Vogue House, you can tell exactly what floor everyone's going to come out on. So people are super, super fashionable. And this was the time when army print was really in, so there literally would be girls in cargo pants, an army hat, and kind of a military jacket. You knew they were going to go out on the Vogue floor. And then the ones which were slightly mumsier but much more expensive clothes, well, they were getting out on the House and Garden floor, and the sexy guys were getting out on the GQ floor, and you could definitely tell it. And I had to go in and do a sort of training day before I started, and I remember coming back and phoning my mum and going, oh my God, there was a girl, she was wearing a shirt dress, Mum. Oh my God, it's so admirable. I'm never going to fit in here. I did actually get paid to write about fashion a few years later, it's shocking. And I was really worried that I wasn't going to be dressed the right way, because in Vogue House you've got to dress a certain way. And realised really, really quickly that actually if I was confident in what I was wearing and wore it my way, then I would fit in and no one would question the way I was dressing. And this is Vogue House. You don't have to dress the way they were writing about in the magazines and websites. You just have to dress the way that you felt comfortable with. And it's taken a long time for me to work out exactly who I am, and I think it's changed over the years. Again, go back to that guy whose wife said he will never work anyone else. When he first came to me, he had a boss who screamed and shouted at him all the time. And he found it very weird that I wasn't screaming and shouting at him. And then I started worrying, because he sort of brought this up, as in, am I doing what you need me to do? And I was like, well, yeah, I'll tell you if you're not. And then I said, oh my God, if I'm going to be the big boss woman, maybe I need to start screaming and shouting at people a little bit. But I'm just not very good at that. I'm probably why I shut John Bess into tears. So that would be a big stretch to move from one to the other. But actually, we've got a mutual respect because I've done it my way and I'm totally different to any editor he's ever had before because I found my centre within this. So I'm still working on it. I'm still working on who I am both as a person. I'm still working on who I am as an editor. But I feel a lot more comfortable in who I am by following these tips, which I've had to hone and practice and trip up over the way. And importantly, I believe that the success that I've had as an editor is now matched by the happiness that I have around that, which at the end of the day is what we're all striving for. So thank you very much.